On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we take a look at the opening night rosters with 1 week to go. Let's hit it.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'd just like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for making us your first watch of the day. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. We are available wherever podcasts are distributed. And please go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube below and leave a comment on today's episode. I mean, we're finally seeing something concrete. Lightning beat reporter Chris Kren, who we have had on this show. If you missed that episode, go back. I had him on during the Eastern Conference Final Series when the Lightning were playing against of course, the New York Rangers. And he came out with an article today previewing our opening night roster, as well as giving us a glimpse as to what the lines will look like. So we'll take a look at that article as well as talk about what we see on Daily Faceoff, because that has all the projected lineups for and lines, for all the teams. I got tons of flack by it was Maple Leaf fans. I never thought that people would be so. I mean, come on, Maple Leafs fans are very upset about a lot of things in their lives, but projected lines that came out in the middle of July, and you're coming at me about that. But you know what? Whatever, forget them. They're going to finish third in the division this year, so I really don't care, or maybe lower. Who knows? But let's take a look at these lines. If you want to follow along, please go ahead on TampaBayLightning.com as well as DailyFaceoff.com. So very interesting how things are shaping up. Not surprised in a way. I did say that a lot of people don't expect Point, Stamkos, and Kucherov to be on the starting lines. They will play with each other at certain points in the game, depending on situations, definitely on the power play. So at least we get to see that. But looking at these lines, and these were updated today, October 4th, as my AC goes on. We're trying to fix it, and we fixed this. So if you look at the lines, Nemestikov on the first line with Stamkos and Kuch. Interesting. It's interesting because I don't think Nemestikov, and let me make it clear, I haven't been paying attention to the preseason games that the Lightning have had, because I really, in any sport, maybe in football, really, I mean, baseball, maybe, I mean, not even football nowadays, they don't even play anybody, but especially in hockey, I mean, you've seen these players play, but it's not the same. You're not really playing at, I think, and I'm not saying that these guys are not going out there and trying, but it doesn't have the same intensity. It really doesn't. It's one thing to go out there and I really think that inter squad games are more intense than actual preseason games, especially with a lot of these Lightning players, guys that have dealt with injuries, that have played all these playoff games over the last couple of years. They're not going to go out there and go balls to the walls on every shift. And I'm sure Cooper has had some conversations with certain individuals about that, especially guys that know they for sure have spots on this team. Like, listen, you're on this team, obviously. I mean, he doesn't have to have this conversation with Stamkos or Point or, Hagel or Killorn, but guys like Cole Kiepe, and Ross Colton, who I think we could all agree at this point has solidified himself on this team. Guys like I'm talking about, referring to, like a Felipe Myers, guys like that. He's probably saying, "Hey, listen, you were brought in. You're going to be on this team. Uh, so just go out there, get acclimated." And yeah, I don't take these preseason games seriously, but if you look at the lines now, where, like I said, we were on the first line, Nemestikov, Stammer, and Cooch. I don't know how to feel about Nemestikov on that first line. He's very skilled. He is going to put up a fair share of points this year as long as he does his part, because you can't help be put up a ton of points when you have this many weapons around you. Nemestikov will put in his fair share. I think the lowest we could probably throw up for him on goals would probably, you know, being a bad year for him or an underwhelming year for him, I would probably say maybe 15. I would be happy with 15 for a Nemestikov season. 15 and 65, maybe a little higher. 15 and 70. I think that's a good year for him. 70 points. I mean, not assist. But I think he'll get 50 points at least, based off the fact of who he's playing around on. If that first line is kept together throughout the course of the season, which remains to be seen. Like I've said on previous pods, I don't know. This every time I look at this Lightning team, one side of me is like going to be very optimistic year. They're going to pick up right where they left off, and because they're going to be motivated, they're going to be pissed after losing the Stanley Cup Finals. And the other side of me is like, well, you know what? They're tired. They have a lot of miles on them. Um, they're going to have that mentality of let's just get in the playoffs and then let's see what happens. Uh, I don't know how to feel. And really, I hate to put the success of a team on one player, but I think the player that is going to be the biggest question mark for this team, depending on where they finish in the year, because really his performance, I really think, could be the difference between third place in the division and knocking on the door of first in the division. Because yeah, Florida's good. They won the Presidents last year. They were the best team in terms of points in the regular season. But I don't think that I think they're a little snake bitten. I think they're still hurting from last year, and I think they didn't necessarily get bigger right away from trading Huberdeau for Matthew Tkachuk, and trading away one of their other key pieces as well. But I don't know. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk, yeah, let's. He's very talented. He's just coming off his first 100-point season. That's great, but I mean, he's not going to be able to carry that entire team, especially if their goaltending is poor. So when you look at these lines for the Lightning, I the player that I'm referring to, and I think is going to be a very big part of what where we're talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning going into the month of April, going into the late stages of April, early May, looking at that first round of the playoffs. I really think it's going to be a factor, or the key to this team's success is going to be a matter of how Brandon Hagel does. Now, not every guy could jump in at the trade deadline and have the success, the otherworldly success that we were so spoiled with by Nick Paul. Nick Paul was lighting the world on fire. I think if he kept that pace off, if he had a full season of keeping up that pace all year, I think we would be talking about him being in the MVP race at the end of the year. I mean, the guy was incredible. And that might be an outlandish statement to certain people. And I'm not saying top three. I'm saying maybe the top five, top six conversation in terms of votes at the end of the year. I think he would have gotten a vote here or there, but we're not going to say what if here. We're talking about this season. Brandon Hagel, listen, I think that he was traded, he was brought in from Chicago for one thing, and that is to score goals, to tally points, and he didn't really, it seemed like he was struggling to do that. He was kind of just almost at times a fish out of water. But the thing about Brandon Hagel, which I really think had Lightning fans fall in love with him, as well as the players on this team, and especially John Cooper, is how easily he was able to jump into a different role, and that was more of a grinder player, a player who at certain times throughout games, little undersized, but reminded me of Yanni Gord when he was in Tampa. I know, tier. Uh, but I really think that if Brandon Hagel could carry over that grittiness, that physical play that we saw him bring with him, and kind of fall back into uh, during the regular season while he was struggling scoring, as well as bringing that extra scoring, I think that this is a matter of Tampa being in third or possibly even winning the Atlantic Division. So we'll continue talking about this lineup, the players in it. Very excited to get to it. But first, I want to talk about today's sponsor, and that is Built Bar. Now, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's new flavor, ready, delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce to you your favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. Have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it is healthy for you. So run to built.com, snag a box for yourself and the family. It will be the perfect treat, or you could find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. A lot of people are going back into the office, or even use it as a snack as the NHL season is underway and the Lightning open up next Tuesday up in New York near me, as they will take on the New York Rangers. And what is great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and that is good for you. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, locked on 15, to get 15% off your order. That's promo code locked on 15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So I'd like to thank once again everybody for following the show. And if you haven't already, please go ahead. What are you doing? Follow us on our social media platforms at LO_lightning on Twitter, as well as locked_on_lightning on Instagram. Love to hear from all of you. And if you're watching us in YouTube and you didn't get what I just said, look below you on the ticker. That has all our social media info, as well as, go ahead to my social media on Twitter at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK. Love hearing from all of you. If you want me to talk about something on the show, go ahead, message me. I don't always check my messages, but when I do, I try to get back to you as soon as possible. And go ahead and drop a comment below on YouTube as well. Love hearing from all of you. Please go ahead before you go to criticize the point I make. Case in point, the Maple Leafs episode, where a lot of Maple Leaf fans were upset about certain things that I said, but if they just would have listened to the thing that I prefaced those statements with, a lot of people would have not have been upset. So listening skills, people, you're definitely going to want to have that when you're listening to a podcast or watching a podcast. So moving on, looking at this lineup, this team that is going to be the 22-23 Tampa Bay Lightning starters for the season. This could very well change as we go on. I expect it to. That's just been the Lightning's MO over the last couple of years. So on the second line, you got Alex Killorn, Braden Point, and Brandon Hagel. Just spoke about Hagel, how I think he's going to be a huge part of the success. The Lightning will still make the playoffs, even if he has somewhat of the same year that he had last year during the regular season when he came over from Chicago. Alex Killorn, the Alex Killorn saga, it continues. It continues into this regular season. If you've been listening to this show for a while, I feel as though Alex Killorn should have been traded last offseason. Obviously, that didn't happen. And his value has, well, at least his trade value. He's still putting up the points. He's still putting up the production. And that's great. But you really saw him break down and really start to slow down in the past playoffs. I mean, the guy was a ghost. I was almost going to file a missing persons report with the city of Tampa police department just so they could go out and find him, because there were certain games where you really didn't see him. He wasn't really involved whatsoever. Um, and I really think the Lightning, even if it was for prospects, at least you're shedding or low end prospects, excuse me, or even for I don't know, just anything, a bag of Skittles. I'm not saying that Alex Killorn is worth that now, but at least you're shedding some of that cap that could go towards, that 4.5, that could go towards, the emergency fund. Let's say, God forbid, one of our top players gets a massive injury where he's out for the rest of the year. And the Lightning need to make a move at the deadline. They're a little bit strapped for cash right now. And, really, this is, unless they do trade him at the deadline, which I don't really see at this point in time, um, there would have to be some sort of really big issue, whether it be with Killorn or the Lightning, or he's just not producing and he's a throw in a trade. And so, the one trade that actually keeps being brought up, I believe it was by one of our listeners on YouTube, and I don't remember the actual trade word for word, but um, the trait that he keeps coming up in, his name is, if you want to go look at it, Yellow Snowman, uh, is he keeps bringing up that the Lightning should, whether it's now or eventually, should make a move um, for Patrick Kane at some point. Now, my, as as tantalizing as that idea of bringing Patrick Kane to Tampa, having him line up alongside Braden Point and Brandon Hagel, his old teammate, I think Chicago is going to try and get as much from Tampa as possible. Now, I will maybe go back to that Yellow Snowman's post and check that out as the season progresses. But that is a trade that we will have to stick a pin in at some point if the current roster is just not getting it done, and there doesn't seem to be somebody up in Syracuse that could come right away and help. But yeah, Alex Killorn, I think that really his performance is not going to be that much more important to the Lightning success, or well, actually that big of an impact on Lightning success. I really think that it's going to be more so because the Lightning will make a move at the deadline. They will. Julian Brees-Boss is not going to sit there regardless of if the Lightning are in second place in the division, if they are in first, or whatever the case may be. He is going to make a move to try and make this team as better as possible, because his and everybody's goal is not to win the division or make the playoffs or make it past the first round. It might be Toronto's, because they haven't made it past the first round since I was out of grade school. And so what we're gonna need, Tampa is gonna definitely bolster up a forward position. I would be shocked unless there's some massive injury or underperforming from the defensive core. Um, but yeah, I think Killorn will be I think he'll be a good part of that deal, if not a throw in. Unless, I mean, I don't know who else Tampa would trade away in that deal. That would be the bigger trade chip. We'll have to wait and see when the time comes. Cole Kiepe is going to be in on the third line. Interesting name that we're going to wait and see how he plays. I think, I'm going to give some of these guys, the benefit of the doubt, even if I'm not familiar with them as I should be. Gabriel Fortier, who I am very much a huge fan of as well. But the name that I really would like to see in the lineup on a nightly basis, whether it be on the third or even on the fourth, is Alex Barré-Boulet. And I'm still don't understand as to why that is something that um, John Cooper is not doing. He has the experience. Yeah, he might be a little undersized, but he has shown in the playoffs and in the big spots that he could really perform and really help this team out. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point during the season or early on in the next couple of weeks if things aren't just clicking for this team, especially if they get off to a slow start. I would not be surprised if we see Alex Barre-Boulet up from Syracuse at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I feel keeping him down or up, if you depending on what you're talking about with the AHL and Syracuse, I would like to see Barre-Boulet alongside Paul and Ross Colton. That I think that would be a good pairing right there. And then obviously the fourth line grinders with Perry, Belmar, and Maroon. I mean, you're not going to change that up. It worked very well last season, so not too worried about that. Now, moving on to the defensive pairings real quick before we wrap it up. Hedman and Foot. Not sure how I feel about that, just because, Foot I think is ready to, and he has shown that he could be a starter in every game. I don't think he is ready yet, though, to be on the first line with Victor Hedman. There are a lot of times, especially where we see Hedman getting back on his horse to to stop breakaways. And I don't know if Foots has that same speed. I would prefer, or at least, the hockey smarts yet to see the ice and be able to cut that guy off. I would prefer a more experienced defender, and maybe that's Cooper's thinking here, is that having an experienced top three defenseman in Victor Hedman will rub off on Cal Foot and then round him off into a more complete defenseman. And hopefully, that he keeps up that potential that he has in his offensive play. Because I really think I've seen Cal Foot with his slap shot. I think he should take that a lot more from the blue line. He's got a big stick and he's got to use it. With Sergachev and Chernak, I'm completely fine with that. I don't mind it whatsoever. You have two experienced defensemen, guys who are very familiar with each other, not worried about that whatsoever. Sergachev, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Had a little bit of a sloppy season last year. And I think that this is going to be his redemption year, and he's going to show us why he deserves the big bucks once again. And the third line, am I wild about the idea of the Lightning's third line pairing being Felipe Myers and Ian Cole? No, not really. I'm not really excited about it. It doesn't get me going. It's not really something that I'm saying, our third lane is solid. We got Ian Cole and Felipe Myers. Felipe Myers, I do like him. I think he's a very decent player. I think that, at the end of the day, I think he showed a little bit of spark there in Nashville, and he's going to bring a lot to the table as he continues to get comfortable with this group. And Ian Cole, he brings the experience. He won a cup with Pittsburgh, so there is that as well. This could be a pairing, or these could be two players that could contribute on the defensive side of things very well and very much so. But I don't think that we're going to see those two guys in a month or so be together. I think, eventually what is going to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if Cal Foot, if he struggles here and there, I think Coop might move him down either to the second or third. I wouldn't mind Cal Foot starting actually on the third line with Ian Cole, having that guy as well. You can't go wrong with Cole or Hedman. Obviously, Hedman is the more skilled defenseman in this case. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's going to be the things that really are going to Lightning fans should look forward to and look at throughout the course of the season. Brandon Hagel, is he going to be able to come back and show the Lightning what they traded for, what they really traded for, and then as well as what is Alex Killorn? How big of a role is he going to be able to play this season? Is this the last run for him in terms of, are we going to say goodbye to him at the trade deadline, or are the Lightning going to almost be shamed if he has a good season and is overperforming? Are they going to be almost shamed into keeping him, and then have to play kind of gamble and see whether or not he's going to be able to sustain that performance heading into the playoffs? And then last but not least, of course, the defensive pairings. like I said, Hedman ain't going nowhere. I think Sergachev is pretty much the anchor of that second line. I wouldn't mind Chernak and Hedman together, have Foot on the third, and then maybe move Myers up to the second, just so you have that nice mix of um, players with Sergachev and Myers, and Foot playing alongside the veteran from Ian Cole on the third line. So we'll have to wait and see how John Cooper juggles things around as he waits for Zach Bogosian and Anthony Cirelli to come back from injury. This is what I love about hockey. So, yeah, it's going to be a season, I think, of musical chairs and what ifs, and can't wait for it to get started next week. So wrapping things up, just once again, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the pod. Go ahead and follow us on our social media pages. Down below on our Instagram, you could see them. LO_lightning on Twitter, locked_lightning on Instagram. Follow us on our YouTube page. Hit that subscribe button, hit a thumbs up, and drop a comment, question you may have, or whatever comment, question, concern about this Lightning team heading into the season, the new season, as it starts next Tuesday up in New York in Madison Square Garden against the New York Rangers. So we'll be back tomorrow to talk more about Lightning hockey. Please stay posted. And that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Denker. I'll talk to you in the next one.